Minister, this question is to ask the progress that has been made with the British Government in relation to the recommendation made by the Independent Reporting Commission in its fifth and its sixth report, which was published very recently, for an agreed formal process of group transition involving direct engagement with paramilitary groups themselves to bring about disbandment.
I thank the Deputy for this question. As he's aware, and I'm sure other colleagues, the Independent Reporting Commission is the body established under the Fresh Start Agreement of 2015 to report on measures aimed at ending paramilitarism. The Commission submitted its first report to the UK and Irish governments back in 2018 and the sixth and most recent report on the 5th of December, and both myself and the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland have welcomed the report of the Commission, and indeed I laid it before the Cabinet just last week. The Commission views the twin track approach as key to tackling paramilitarism. This involves progress both through the policing and criminal justice response and a response to the wider socio-economic factors that exist in the communities where paramilitaries continue to operate. Coupled with this is an additional dimension that the Deputy has referred to, namely the consideration of undertaking a process of engagement directly with the paramilitary groups themselves, aimed at group transition with the end goal of disbandment. One of the recommendations of the Commission's fifth report is that the Government would consider appointing an independent person to engage with the groups on this transition. The governments have discussed the analysis and the recommendations of the IRC, including through the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference as recently as last month here in Dublin, and both sides acknowledged that additional steps are needed to definitively achieve the ending of paramilitarism. Both governments agreed that the IRC's recommendation for the appointment of the independent person to engage with and to report in detail on the question of the possible establishment of a formal process of comprehensive group transition has the potential to make a positive contribution, and we will continue our work jointly to consider this recommendation of the IRC. So while a person has not been appointed, we are actively engaged in who that person might be or how that person would operate, and then putting forward potential proposals around a formal process of group transition. My department remains absolutely committed to continuing constructive engagement with the Commission more broadly in the respect of its work in 2024. As I've outlined, the report not just deals with this particular recommendation, but also the way in which we can engage proactively with communities, supporting them where there was a criminal element to the paramilitary groups that are still on the ground, but also where there's a need to invest in the socio-economic issues that are impacting on those communities more broadly as well. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for the comprehensive reply. It's very useful. As you know, I believe that recommendation is one of the key recommendations in the report, because if we could persuade people to move forward from where they are, it's one of the enduring ways of creating a circumstance that these groups would disband and wouldn't be operating. Can you indicate to me whether the British government are fully bought into this concept now, and whether you think that progress can be made? Because I think there is a certain amount of urgency. I'm always afraid. You know the principle when you're on a bicycle, you stop going forward, you start wobbling and you'll fall off the bicycle. And I think there's an element of that here, that it's important that we continue actually to progress. It would be a bold step, I accept that, but there are precedents where such bold steps in the past have reaped rich dividends, and that talking has been more beneficial than anything else in bringing about a new dispensation.
I will say just at the outset that I would agree with you. I think this is an important recommendation, and certainly one that I and the government would support, and certainly in my engagement with the British government, it is a recommendation that they too support, and it's about trying to find a mechanism where everybody involved here supports it fully. And obviously we have ongoing situations in Northern Ireland as well. We don't have a functioning executive. You have a number of parties there too. And it's making sure that all parties here that are potentially impacted, including communities, that everybody is in agreement on how we move forward. As you say, it is a bold move. It is not something that everybody might support, but I think we've seen in the past where something like this has been successful, where it can be successful, and I think it adds to the other dimensions where work is underway. There is a particular view from some that the organisations are engaged in only criminal activity. I think we need to make sure that we're looking at all of the different elements here, and we're taking a full view of what might work, what might be helpful, particularly if we're trying to get to that end goal where we have full disbandment. But certainly it's something that I support and that this government supports, so we will continue to work with the UK government to that effect.
I would agree that I think it's fair to say that the different groups involved in paramilitarism on both sides of the community could have fairly different characteristics, and I think we have to recognise that. But that said, the IRC, I think, have been very responsible about it. They've gone about their business very quietly and very efficiently. They operate in a very coherent fashion, even though obviously the members come from very different perspectives. And I'd have to say my interaction with them, I found them a very impressive group of people who make who think deeply about this and make very serious recommendations. So I'm not really asking a question, I'm just hoping that we could progress this, and I'd like to thank you for your positive replies. And, I think it might, certainly, not every group might buy in, but I think if any groups buy in, it would be certainly worth the effort.
Thank you, Deputy, and I would agree. I've met with the members of the IRC, the Independent Reporting Commission, a number of times, and they've all been appointed for their own reasons and the experience that they have, and I think the way in which they have engaged with and in the community has been really positive. They've obviously gained the trust of a lot of people. They've been engaged in and working in a really proactive way, in a positive way, and I think any of the recommendations they've made, whether it's this one or any others, it has been through detailed consideration and through active engagement with the communities on the ground, those most impacted by this. So any recommendation that they would make, I absolutely, as does every member in the government, including the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, take their recommendations very seriously, and that's why I would support this, and I think we need to actively find a way to be able to progress it. Thank you.